by becoming rich.
Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
I say when we sell.
Wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. All right, today is Thursday, 1st of August, new month. Start off by having a look at BTC, ETH, and Solana on the monthly charts. Okay monthly close. To me, that sets up at least another month of consolidation. I would say it's unlikely that we see August breaking out to clean new all-time highs. We can move towards that level, but you can see quite clearly there is persistent long-term spot holders selling. So originally, whenever we first got the ETFs and pushed up to this area, it was predominantly grayscale. So the GBTC sellers were coming in at all-time highs, which is to be expected and that's nothing overly out of the ordinary. Then we would, for the past 5 months, we've bounced up, and each time sellers step in sooner and sooner. Started off at around 74, then 72, and then 71.5, and then 71.6, and then 70.3. 5 consecutive lower highs on the monthly in terms of just the upper wick. This is a weak chart from one perspective, and it is a strong chart from another perspective. Right, so if you take on a monthly line chart, Bitcoin has broken out and is consolidating above its 2021 all-time high breakout. So from that perspective, especially spending so many months up here, it's less likely for that, again, it still could turn out, but it's less likely for that to be a bearish signal for a top of the market, and much more likely that if you're just looking at a straight breakout consolidation, and you see a clean breakout above all-time high or above resistance and consolidates above that level, that is generally a good sign. Now, what absolutely cannot happen, and what I would confidently say bull market's over, is if we go below that level. If Bitcoin goes below 61.3, which perfectly aligns with something I'm going to show in a minute, if Bitcoin goes below there on a monthly basis, it's done. It's absolutely done. There's no reason why you would spend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months consolidating above a previous breakout level and then go lower. It's unthinkable. And so that'd be like our lowest point. I could see it going and remaining bullish. So we'll cover that off in a second, but I want to look at ETH as well. ETH on the monthly. ETH is just consolidating on its monthly. It's moved up and it's spent the past 5 months consolidating inside of here. There's not really anything particularly interesting about ETH. It's not taking its all-time high, so there's still a target above. If it goes back down a bit, it's just ETH. It's not really anything surprising. I don't think it's going to do anything that different to BTC. I think Bitcoin's going to dictate where the market goes. Sol had a monthly close right around that 170, which is the top end of that value area I mentioned before. Again, it's fine. Many of these are just forming lower highs, and I think that'll be how they finish their bull markets. I don't think that they're going to go to, people talking about Solana to $500 or $1,000. They've all got their excuse loaded up already. People online with influencers talking about how these things are going so high. There'll be an excuse when it doesn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that the market has that much room to run. And, you're relying on a Trump win. And the fact that you're relying on a Trump win, which isn't coming as in the landslide fashion that people think it is. I talked about this a little bit last night. But Trump's odds are getting worse by the day. And the campaign's fucked. If you think about it. They have nothing going for them to win over normies anymore. Because you now have a black woman president. Yeah, she's black, she's Indian. People say she wants to be Indian. Trump's saying this. It's such nonsense, though. You have to don't forget that the majority of Americans are brainwashed, fucking, glued to the TV, and they believe whatever TV tells them. And she will win the younger vote, she will win the black vote, and she will win the female vote. And Trump, that's what you need to win the election. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? So I think people are... I do think, by the way, the market is reflecting this a little bit. I think that's a decent bit of what Bitcoin's last few days of weakness have been. This run-up was Trump assassination attempt over here, running up expecting Trump, landslide is going to win super easy, and now people who had overbought, right, so they got a little bit too long in anticipation of that, it's just correcting back now. 64 is still fine, 64 is a good level. Below that gets a bit sketchy, talk about that in a second. But you have to be clear. When it was Trump against Biden, it was an old guy against an older guy who had dementia. So there would have been a lot of people who don't want to vote for Trump necessarily, but they could clearly see Biden is super old and not fit for office. One of the biggest things that the average person, a voter, was talking about was just, why are our presidents so old? Not even talking about Biden's dementia. They were just saying, why is one of the president candidates 78 and the other one's 81 or whatever age Biden is? And it does not matter how bad you think Harris is, and I think she's terrible and a retard. She's like 60. So she looks a million years younger and more youthful. That's going to win some votes. And you're deluded if you think it's not. And then Biden was an old white man. Trump was an old white man. So there was no reason for minorities to vote either way necessarily. And Trump was actually winning a lot of the black vote and Latino or Hispanic or whatever. Again, now they've put in Republicans are like, Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. But also, it doesn't matter if you're talking about politics in terms of identity. She seems to be winning over some of those voters. Trump can't. Trump can only say what he can say, but he isn't that person. He's a white man. And then women. That's the most obvious one ever. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, which is hilarious. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016. Hillary Clinton's the least likable person in politics maybe ever, and she beat Trump on popular vote. He won the actual election because it's not decided on popular vote, but she won that. And Harris is an idiot, but she's nowhere near as hated as Hillary Clinton, and she's a woman, and she's a woman of color. She's gonna win votes. She's probably gonna win the popular vote, and that is actually that's the expectation right now. That's the estimation. What is it? 270 to win. Yeah. So this is the Electoral College, and currently there's still a lot of it up for grabs. But currently the Democrats are winning. They're not winning. On one of the, where's the one that's most? I think 5-3. It's the most accurate. Yeah, Republicans are ahead in the Electoral College still, but it's closing. And where is the popular vote? 2024 popular vote polls. And polls, obviously, polls are not that overly accurate. What is this? Why is this still got Trump and Biden on it? Who's ahead in the US presidential race? Trump still leads most polls, but Harris not far behind. So she's got the momentum and is catching him. Anyway, what matters overall, as is quite clear, is Harris is better than Biden. So a lot of the markets, especially crypto markets, because it's a big, Trump's gone very pro-crypto, Democrats are not. A lot of this changing of pricing is fluid. Again, she's over 40% now. Kamala Harris was super low whenever she actually got announced, whenever Biden dropped out at the end of July, or at the sort of mid to late July, wasn't it? When she had that spike up. She was 30%. She's up to 43%. Trump's moving the other way. Trump was as high as 70 after the assassination attempt, 71. And he's on a one-way slide lower, down to 55. it still makes him the favourite, but the trend is moving in the wrong direction. And the good thing is that there's still time left until the election, right? There's still, what? I mean, when I say good thing, if you want Trump to win, obviously, because it's better for crypto, and, less fucking insane, weird policies and woke stuff. August, September, October. So you have 3 full months till the election. Plenty can change. And also that's why there's a lot of, like, if you look around online, there's now for the first time people starting to question Trump. Before they were like, he's going to win easily in a landslide. Now you see people less confident, less certain. But that's still 3 months away. So a lot of people are like, oh no, Trump's going to lose now. Crypto's going to go to zero. Like, no, well, a month from now, that could all turn around. And I still think that leading into the next Fed meeting, you could see crypto near all-time highs because we're moving towards you can see Bitcoin anyway, because we're moving towards a rate cutting cycle, which is probably more impactful, as if not more impactful, than just the election itself. Mentioned this last night when we were going into the Fed meeting. Didn't get any clear out of the highs above, but got the move down to 64. So 64k was a level that could be met, could be reached, and is no surprise that that's been reached. So certainly there's nothing here that would indicate that moving down to this level is out of the ordinary or out of the question. That was always something on the cards. I talked about it the other day. I said if 65.7 doesn't hold, you're looking at 64. Where do we go next? 64. Down into this area. Down into these lows. Let's just see how price develops over here. We're actually now coming back into some good areas for opening up positions. And if you want to look at a zoomed out version here, this is how it looks and has looked for the last several months. We had this old value area all the way over here from Bitcoin moving up in February all the way until it initially broke down in July, and then we got a reclaim. We reclaimed the old value area low at 61.2, and it moved all the way up to the value area high at 69.1. Perfect move from value area low to high, and now we've rejected back down into the middle. So the red path and the green path remain rock solid. If it loses 61.2, lights out, game over. In my opinion, I don't see how that can really be salvaged. It's not impossible, but it's just like when we were over here and I mentioned you don't want to see 62k getting lost, and we got lost and went down to 53. Bulls absolutely need to hold that 61.2 area. It's from a higher time frame perspective. If you look as well at a zoomed out version over here, and we take this path that we had, I'm going to remove some of the value areas and redraw them. I was talking about these two paths around the FOMC. So yesterday we had our FOMC. The Fed didn't raise rates, or cut rates, sorry. And Powell pretty strongly indicated that they would cut rates in September 18th. That's the next meeting. So that is about 6 weeks away. And if the markets do have a deeper sell-off or a corrective move, you might see a bottom forming around there. Now, I don't want that path to be used as anything other than just a very rough guide. This September meeting, you could see price going. That could actually end up being a top. So it might touch that all-time high off at that time and then pull back when everyone's expecting some massive explosion higher into the, after the rate cuts begin. But the main thing, let's keep it really simple. When I zoom out and I look at this, we had our FOMC. Seems like, at least for now, it's stalling out the momentum a little bit. And if you take this entire setup from over here, when we had that first move on the breakout, that first breakout above 55, and taking it from the candle after, all the way to where we are now, you can see the current value area and the current distribution we're in lines up pretty much exactly with the other one. So even when you update the volume profile, it lines up well, except the point of control is moved higher. So if you look at this previous distribution, the POC was lower, meaning most of the volume was distributed towards 62.8. Since then, as we move back up and into the range, more volume has been distributed higher. So Bitcoin below 67 is more likely to go towards 61.8. Unless Bitcoin can reclaim that 67, there's no breakout coming imminently, and it's actually likely to slip back down towards that 61.8 level. If you're looking at daily close, daily market structure is over here. So on a close basis, you want to see this dotted red line. You do not want to see daily closes below that, because that would be that would be a break of structure from this current consolidation that is holding. So as long as Bitcoin holds around there, I see it as being quite a clear range between 63, just under 64, up as high as 70. If it loses that, 61.6 has to hold. Below that, that's where it gets bad. And when you're looking at it, I was showing this to some of my masterclass students. As a trade entry, I liked the idea of it pulling back into here, which is done. Consolidation, sweep out that, and then move, and then up we go. So I'm still watching for a potential sweep of all of this just on a wick basis, not even a close basis. Right now, here, we're back at support. Good area to see price holding, good area to see price consolidate. And I wouldn't have any major concerns over that just yet. It's obviously showing a rounded out topping pattern, and it's coming back down into support and holding and holding and holding. But price has done this many, many times before. It's only when this loses. If it loses this level and starts to come down into here, that's when you're looking at, you need to see a reclaim, right? If it drops down into this area, I would not touch anything until there's a reclaim of that red line, because that definitely would be an area where price could go lower. So from a higher time frame perspective, we're just consolidating inside of this value area. The POC is above us. The value area high is above us. There's no all-time high breakout till above there. Quite clear, quite simple. And if you look at Solana, ETH is just doing ETH things. It's really just chopping around. I think it's probably going to head back towards there. Not a huge amount of interest in that. But Sol has lost that value area high currently. So the previous value area, which it had broken out from, it then pushed up, grabbed that liquidity, and has reversed. If Sol starts to accept inside this black line, you're looking at the old POC and you're looking at the value area low as potential targets. That's what happens when you have a failed breakout above value. You can move through to the other side. So Sol needs to avoid that. If it doesn't, though, one of the things you can see is a front running, meaning it does drop lower, but it doesn't reach the bottom end. That is bullish for a breakout. If it comes back inside, flushes out some of these longs and takes them down, and people are expecting it to move all the way back to 120, but it doesn't reach there, that's a good area to look at getting back into longs. Front running of these, setting higher lows. When it's moving up, and then it does that. It doesn't come all the way back to the previous support. That would be good. So more time needed. I think altcoins are still months away from having any bullish broad structure. The market's probably going to wait and hold its breath about the election. You know, a Trump loss, anything other than a Trump victory is bad for crypto overall. It keeps the old power structures in place. It makes Gary Gensler less likely to lose his job. It keeps Elizabeth Warren with a lot of power, keeps Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary, keeps Powell as Fed Chair. There's not going to be any major changes. And that means it's going to be more difficult for crypto to adapt and have any positive regulatory clarity. There's no other way to view it than that being a negative. So this next 3 months becomes hyper important for crypto. And it's going to be more difficult for crypto to be very, very bullish when you're looking at the potential for, a Democrat presidency, not a Republican one. But I do think that since we've tried to take out the lows and reclaim the range, I do think Bitcoin can move towards the range high. Whether it breaks out 80k, 90k, 100k remains to be seen. I do think it can move back up, though. I don't think that this is the end unless it starts to lose some of those levels. The old POC is a great place to see as well. This old red line, if you get a flush down into that and it holds, that's a good entry point. So is the value area low. So there's still two areas below. If you remember, when we had that impulse candle through back in July, I mentioned pullbacks into this 63 and 61.2 as being good areas to buy. If Bitcoin came to that level and held, you would expect it to move through to the other side. I would not be overly concerned if we saw a move down there in terms of the possibility for a bounce. If you want to see the most strength, if you want to see price really building itself into some strong base for a breakout, it should front run that, right? It should not pull back into those areas if there is strong demand underneath. But currently, we've quite a bit of supply. There seems to be Bitcoin sellers popping up left, right, and center. There doesn't seem to be any slowdown in that. And a lot of it seems to be coming from Coinbase again. I showed this in the chat yesterday. Coinbase Premium, which tells you whether Coinbase is trading at a premium or a discount to the rest of the market. Having flipped back to a premium after being in a deep discount through all the selling, Coinbase is now flipping back towards a discount again, which indicates that Coinbase's price is lower than the other exchanges. And since the ETF buying and selling, since the major institutional buying and selling, since US government selling, German government selling, most of that takes place on Coinbase. It's telling you that if this is in a negative, so it's red, that there is an excess of sell pressure on Coinbase specifically, which for this cycle is more of the kind of bigger money, institutional money, smart money, and you don't want to see it. Very simple sense, you don't want to see that. We saw some decent inflows into Bitcoin ETF yesterday. Not yesterday. We saw flat inflows into Bitcoin yesterday at the end of the month. And into ETH, we saw another outflow day, but the ETH outflows have slowed and the Bitcoin inflows have slowed. So we're kind of going back to this neutral, like literally bang on neutral. Start of the month. So it's the 1st of August. New months, you tend to let them play out a little bit, right? We saw, you could even see back in May. In May, we saw the first big red day on the 1st of May, and that was it. That was the bottom. And then we rallied up for the rest of May. 1st of June, we saw the start of June with green. We saw a strong push at the beginning of June, which ended up marking the top, and then we flushed all the way down. And at the start of July, we saw same thing. A green day at the start of July, but then it flushed all the way to the lows. So the first day or few days of the month can actually be counter to how the month moves. If you look at this, especially in a consolidation, we started off red in May and we finished green. In June, we started off green and finished red. In July, we started off green with a 1-day pump, and then we flushed down to red and we finished green. So in each of the last 3 months, we've saw the first move, whether it's 1 day or several days, being, you want to call it a trap, start off with a bull trap or a bear trap and moving the other direction. So moving down at the start of August doesn't concern me. In fact, I'd rather that than just pumping straight away, because at least on the monthly candle, we're putting in some form of a lower wick to begin with. And overall, I think you want to wait and see how this develops. If Bitcoin is able to stay above 64 and hold, once you get back over 67, that's when we're looking at it building a nice structure for a breakout. 64 holds, 67 gets reclaimed, good. 64 holds, 67 rejects, you could see it's going down to 61.6, 61.5, and once you get above that, of course, you're looking at these all-time high breakouts. All-time high is still a long way away. You can see that from the rejection. As soon as we touch 70, strong sellers stepped in again. So it's not reasonable to expect that this just suddenly Bitcoin flips around and moons. But what you want to see is recovery, consolidation. If it holds in this area, this is all just consolidation. Even if it takes several days or weeks, it's not bad, right? If you're looking at how does this look over here, as long as it holds, it's building a base. Leg up, consolidate before the next leg higher, right? So if you're looking at this as an overall structure, the only thing that matters is this going to form a consolidation before higher or before lower? And until there's a clean break either side, this is mostly going to be consolidation and chop. If you're looking at that from a range trading perspective, intra-week, well, then we're near the lows. If anything, you want to be looking at longs over the next few days to push back towards the highs. unless there's a clean break below, in which case you cut all that and you wait. Bitcoin's daily bands are still green, but we're down below them. You want to be watching closely for that. If the bands flip red, that's one of your signs that we're going into a downtrend. And looking at open interest. Open interest on Bitcoin and Bitcoin and Sol got way too high, way too fast. Market got ahead of itself. See here, all-time highs in nominal terms on open interest, while price was not. That's a divergence. Bitcoin's OI is still holding. It's still rising here. The market is not exiting these positions yet. Is that going to be bullish, or are they going to be forced to exit? We'll see. Solana did the same thing. Touched all-time high, and yet price nowhere near. Price significantly diverged from it. So it seems like there's still a little bit too much long positioning in the market here. What you want to see is consolidation. Sol needs to reclaim 172. Bitcoin needs to reclaim 67k. That's the simple view from here. That's it, GM. Over the next few days, we'll see what's happening, and we'll have a better idea of what's going to be happening throughout August. Is August going to be a trending month, or is August going to be another consolidation month? Right now, I would lean towards consolidation, and probably we'd see towards the end of the year the better opportunity for inflows and higher prices, as it tends to be. September, October, November, December tend to have better returns than May, June, July, August. Right, that middle of the year is typically the weakest part. It's been weak again this year, and let's see how it goes. That's it. GM. Today we'll do altcoin requests. See if any alts are looking good. See you then.